Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 295 of A Yank on the Footy. I'm Craig Wessels, coming from Sandusky, Ohio, and I am thrilled that you're listening. It's a couple days before Thanksgiving here in the United States, and looking forward to getting on the road and visiting some family here in the coming days, and even not too long down the road, have my youngest child getting ready to graduate from college, and I'm really excited about that. But folks, in this episode, I'm going to be sitting down with a gentleman that reached out to me on my YouTube channel. And if you've not subscribed over there, I hope you'll do that. I hope you'll also subscribe over my website, ayankonthefooty.com. So when new episodes come out, they'll be in your inbox as soon as they're available. And I'm usually doing at least one episode a week. I've kind of slacked off here a little bit towards the end of October, beginning of November. It's been a busy time at school. And I'm just starting to get myself back into the swing of things here. But this gentleman who reached out to me, Anthony Pirera, had a terrific idea that I want to share with you, and you can see it in the title. And while I have seen just snippets of what this is all about, I know that this is something that the different states throughout Australia are passionate about, because it's your game, it's your opportunity to put the best foot forward for your state. And he had some really compelling arguments as to why the state of origin might need to come back. Now, I do hope you'll check out my website, ayankonthefooty.com, as I mentioned. If you enjoy the podcast, I hope you'll head over there and leave a review. You can also leave comments over at my YouTube channel as well. Just look for Yank on the Footy. If you want to reach out to me on Twitter, at Yank_on. I'm on Facebook, Yank on the Footy Podcast, LinkedIn, Instagram as well. You can find me in all of those places. If you do leave a review, please let me know that you've done that, okay? Yes, I will see it, but I want to thank you for doing that. And I have a handful of my podcast stickers just like this one. And I just sent one of these out a few days ago to somebody. It was long overdue. And I did drop that in the post, and it should be on its way. Well, hopefully it's out of the United States by now. But if you leave a great review for me over on my website that I can share out with people, give me a little bit of street cred, if you will, I want to get one of those stickers in the post to you. So you'd have to let me know who you are, where you are, so I can get it in the post for you. Okay. Now, folks, also, if you happen to have a most memorable game, I would love to share that story with my listeners as well, because they're just fun to talk about. Because I'm still, of course, learning this game, and I'm learning it from you. And any opportunity that I get to hear about something that is never going to leave your mind is wonderful for me. And I love being able to share those stories with other folks, because they may have great memories of that game as well. Maybe their team lost that game, but they can maybe appreciate your take on why that particular game is important to you. So if you've got a great idea for an episode, if you've got a most memorable game you want to talk about, reach out to me over my website, ayankonthefooty.com, and drop me a note over there. You can get registered as a guest. You can shoot me an email again at ayankonthefooty@gmail.com. I'd love to talk to you. I am going to be still working to finish up the postmortems for the different clubs that did not play finals in 2023. Of course, this interview that I did with Anthony was a couple of weeks ago. And I'm recording this in between night 1 and night 2 of the 2023 draft. So I'll certainly come back and look at the draft a little bit after this is complete. But again, I will not pretend to know a great deal about these young athletes that have been picked up. Now, I will say that I thought that the little snippet of video, I believe the young man's name is O'Sullivan, who was drafted by the Cats last night, and hearing one of his teammates, I believe from the Bushrangers, it was picked right after him by GWS, who was there to support him, didn't think he was going to be getting drafted. So he was there in a white polo shirt or button-down shirt, that sort of thing. He's talking to Joel Selwood, and he heard his name announced, and he turns heel and runs and gives his shirt to him. So he had his club shirt to wear going up on stage. Really, really cool story. Now, that being said, I know he's a former teammate, but he's not allowed to ever get an uncontested mark from you in his entire career. Okay. Yeah, your teammates and juniors. It's professional now. So no uncontested marks. Let's go ahead and jump into my chat with Anthony Pirera. We'll talk about the state of origin. And I'd love to get your take on that as well. So, go ahead and reach out to me. Let me know what you think in the comments here. All right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am absolutely thrilled to be welcoming my guest, Anthony Pirera, to the podcast. Anthony, thanks for getting up this morning, sir, and welcome.
G'day, how are you?
I am fantastic. I'm wonderful. This has been a great week at school. I am ready for a bit of a nap, however, but I hope you had a wonderful week and enjoying your Saturday. You got some upside down temperatures there where you end up going out where it's 21 and you're going to have a high of 19 that day. So I think that the weather people need to go ahead and maybe make some adjustments there. But you reached out to me a couple of months back and you had a rather unique idea. I had heard of the state of origin games that you had talked about. I did not, and I still don't know a whole heck of a lot about them. And I know they did one fairly recently that did not end up being very well received. And then they tried something else recently that went over even more poorly, and that was AFLX.
Oh God,
where
that was terrible.
Yes, I mean, I just have to ask you before we discuss this. You're not going to be proposing, because you have a great proposal here that you're going to share about how to reconstitute the state of origin games. But I don't want to end this early, but you're not going to suggest anything along the lines of having like a 10-point super goal or anything like that, are you?
No.
Okay,
no.
That's
just
good.
going to be honest.
Okay,
normal football.
So we can go ahead and continue, since we're going to do that. Then we're not going to have guys dressed up like they're either Marvel superheroes. Or from the DC. I don't know which universe is which, and I marvel in not knowing.
Yeah,
I'll let that sink in for a minute. For those of you who like comic book movies, I'm not a big fan. So tell me about your memories of the state of origin. How what kind of got this percolating in your mind? What do you remember about the state of origin as you were growing up, and what got you excited about wanting to talk about this?
The state of origin is very exciting when you've got the best players from your state playing against another state with the best players.
Mm-hmm.
You used to go along and watch them. Used to come home on a Tuesday. They used to play them on a Tuesday, and come home from school, and you put on the telly and stuff. And you used to see the best players that came out from your state. And over the years, Victoria actually just took all the best players from around the country. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So if you're a South Australian and you're following a club and you see some nice young teenager coming through, oh, he's going to be a great player. Before you knew it, he was playing in the VFL back here.
Mm-hmm.
So when those players went back to play for their state, they really played football, and you knew it was fair income.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this went on. I think from the video that you shared, I think that this actually began like in the 1870s with like the first one.
Time ago.
Yeah, the first one. And I thought that video was interesting, but they talked about New Zealand having been involved with it for a while, and I didn't realize that footy had bad pun not intended, had gained a foothold in New Zealand. And what I'm wondering what caused that to kind of fall apart. Was it simply just the distance? But do you know anything about the New Zealand impact on the game?
No, because it was such a long time ago. I think what happened is New Zealand actually started playing football quite well and quite often and quite a lot. But what happened, I think the rugby side of things took over.
That makes sense.
Do you know what I mean? When people will say, no, this is going to be our game, rugby, and they look down upon people who were playing AFL at that time. But we're talking a turn of the century, so
right.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah, most definitely. And I'm born in the 1960s, and I feel old, so it's I certainly get that. But so did you ever get to go to one of these games when you were young?
I went to a couple. I went to one in '89, and the '89 game was a special game. I think it was around about 90,000 at the MCG, and it was a very muddy ground. I think you should actually go back and look at highlights. And one of the players there, Tony Hall, got tackled by his teammate. Tony Hall was representing South Australia. And he got tackled by his teammate, Andy Collins, and he did his knee. And I think from then, when that happened, they decided, State of Origin clubs decided and coaches decided, we're not going to risk our players playing this game.
Okay. I'm just looking up Tony Hall's picture here. Looks like he
Dermot Brereton on SEN on Monday said that Tony Hall was leading Hawthorn's best and fairest by a mile in 1989 before he got his injury.
Mm-hmm.
And you remember how important 1989 was, don't you?
That was the Cats and Hawks grand final. If I'm not mistaken. Yes, which I believe.
Yeah.
I believe there are still a couple of arrest warrants out for a couple of those players from that game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
I have watched that one, and I think that if I was to, I try to get people interested in the game here. My wife has never watched a second of footy. My kids don't live, my kids live hundreds of miles away. And I used to be a huge baseball fan, and I gave up on baseball a little over 3 years ago. And I'm frustrated with the way that the sport is being played here in the United States. So I don't miss it because it's on at the same time as footy. I'm so thankful for footy, but yeah, it's
good.
Yeah. I'm looking at the Tony Hall's stats here, where he played for basically 5 years with Hawthorn, and then got to go back to
play with the Crows,
South Australia, and play in 94, 95 for 30 games as well. But he's got 290. He's almost a 330 game player overall in his career. I mean, that's
good.
That's
100, good.
103 with 103 with Glen Elg, 97 with Hawthorn, and 17 with the Crows in the AFL. So, that's 217 games altogether. I was counting goals, not games there. So 217 games altogether. Yeah.
Yeah, and he did his knee badly. They said that was a bad one.
So
after that, when they tried to get players to play, players wanted to play, but the clubs were resting them and said, no, they've got an injury, they can't play.
Yeah.
So you were getting down the standard of players that wanted to play. And I think it lost interest in the end because clubs didn't want to get their players injured. But then again, you see a game when you've got Tony Lockett and Jason Dunstall both playing full forwards, and you got Gary Ablett running around in the Victorian jumper. That was just incredible. And you had Gary Lyon and Dermot Brereton. That's your forward line. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Playing against other states. The funny thing is, with the other states, you used to see players coming up. You go, I remember seeing Stephen Kernahan play before he actually played for Carlton, playing for his state as a young teenager. And you were going, he's up against the top Victorian players, and he's playing well. He's getting the ball. This guy's going to be good. And it was the same with John Platten in South Australia as well. He was around the same time. And you saw him representing the state, and this kid's going in, he's grabbing the ball and just running off with it. And you think that you're playing against the top 20 players from our state, and you're running away with the ball. It's just incredible. And it was the same with Western Australia. I remember seeing Gary Buckenara before he played for Hawthorn.
Right.
Yeah.
And looking
incredible.
I'm looking at. I remember seeing pictures of John Platten, and he, the hair is something you're never going to forget. But he looks a little bit like Eric Idle from Monty Python.
Yeah.
He looks a little like Eric Idle, especially now, in his older years, because he's 60, he's my age. He's 60 years old now, but he looks a little bit like Eric Idle. And he's having, as it mentions here, he's had some issues due to concussion that, and I had Sean Smith on the podcast.
Yeah, no, that was a good podcast. You did very well with that. That was
a while back.
Fantastic podcast.
Well, that he stunned me when we're speaking, and he told me that because I had no idea he was going to say it, that when we were speaking, he said that just a few weeks prior to that, he was sitting in the Richmond train station and contemplating jumping in front of a train. And I was like, I'm just trying to learn about the game. I was like, how in the, and I think I did okay following that up, but I was not expecting that at all. And it was just, that was just like, I mean, that was just laid bare. And he's just, I've traded a couple of messages with him, and it's since then, and he just, he's just a genuinely nice gentleman, but has just been battling some serious issues as a result of his playing career. And ultimately, I think, and this gets back to, as you mentioned, injury issues, and yes, knee injuries and such can be rehabbed, ankles, shoulders can be rebuilt, that sort of thing. But the head injuries are something that the game is going to have to figure out. How do we, I should say we is a rather presumptive thing for me to say it, since I've never actually seen a game in person. I hope that I can say we next year. But how does the game keep itself relevant?
I know,
with what's going on, and I'm sure that discussion happens even more than I notice in the the amount of footy media that I try to consume here from this vantage point. But I know that has to be being discussed, and I guess, before we get into your setup for the game, I mean, does that worry you about the game,
yes,
10, 20, 30 years from now?
You don't want to see players having that type of injury that they have to suffer with it long term.
Right.
The mental side of things. I think the AFL is just going to knuckle down. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but they'll just have to say, look, you just have to wear helmets right across the board.
Yeah. Even if it's like the Brayshaw one, if nothing else.
Yeah, just something. It gives them something.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're probably right. And it's
because that Gary Rowan one and Cameron,
yes.
that was head on head.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just to protect from head on head contact.
Yes. Yeah, it is. It's and I will, in fact, I had a video clip of some footage of games on my television during at the end of one of my classes yesterday, because we had a significant amount of free time at the end of the period, because their schedule was completely different than the other class periods of the same course that I'm teaching. So we had a little bit of time there, and a lot of the kids that are in that class play gridiron football, and they're watching this, and they're looking at me and they're saying, they're not allowed to jump on people like that, are they? I said, man, that is celebrated. That is encouraged. That is something right there that if they actually award the best one of those each year. Okay.
Yeah, and they're trained to do that.
Yes, exactly.
They're trained to do it.
Yeah. And it's, it is interesting to just watch their reactions when they look at it and they go, they're not wearing any equipment, are they? No, yeah, they got equipment on. They've got some strapping tape holding their shoulders in place and that sort of thing. But
yeah, they got a mouth guard.
That's about it. They got a mouth guard. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm going to guess that they're probably wearing a cup, I would imagine. But other than that, no, they don't have any other equipment on. They're much more of a group of tough guys than the guys that play gridiron football with all of our padding that we have here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
well, you especially know how tough they are after that 89 grand final.
Oh, absolutely.
Like that's incredible what they went through.
Yeah. Dipper, DiPiero Domenico talking about he played the game with a collapsed lung.
Yeah, punctured lung.
Yeah. He played the game with a punctured lung. I mean, I cannot imagine the pain that he was going under at that point in time. And you think about it, even at that point in time, the salaries for these athletes were not commensurate to the danger of the game that they're playing. And you could sort of make the argument that they're still not commensurate to the damage that can be accrued to them.
Dippy Domenico had to be picked up off the ground when the siren went. Like, he was really flat and out.
Yeah.
And Dermot Brereton was actually passing blood at halftime from a kidney.
Uh-huh. Yeah, because if I
Yeah.
remember correctly, the opening bounce, somebody came and cleaned his clock. It's like
Yeah.
the ball went down and somebody from the Cats came across and just absolutely leveled him.
Yeah.
You know, it's
That documentary link that I sent you, that's incredible because that was done in 2014, and the players are looking back on it. And actually, Alan Jeans was interviewed, but he was already passed when that show was done.
yeah.
That documentary. It's an incredible documentary because you've got players from both sides explaining their situation. And
Right.
Malcolm Blake does a good job.
Right.
The coach.
It is, you know, it is just you know, I'm so thankful that I found the game, you know. And again, if you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening to it for the first time, I go back in many earlier episodes of the podcast and kind of trace how I got to where I am becoming a fan of this game. And if you're, you know, an NFL fan and you've discovered this, I've got plenty of episodes that go into why, if you are an NFL fan, you would love this sport if you give it a chance. And that's all you got to do is give it a chance, and you'll absolutely love it. And I hope you'll check those out. But getting back to the state of origin here, you had it set up initially where and it seemed like it was kind of piecemeal where it was happening, where South Australia would play against Victoria, and then maybe Victoria would play against, a few years later Victoria would play against WA, and then Queensland and New South Wales played against one another, and then somebody whispered in the area and said, "You're rugby states, knock it off already." And but
it's funny growing up in Victoria, and we have the same culture growing up as a child, going to school as the kids from South Australia, Western Australia, Tasmania. But I don't know what the culture was with kids from New South Wales and Queensland, because as a boy growing up, we just had footballs all the time. And every recess and lunchtime, we'd be out there kicking the ball from pack to pack. We used to call it kick to kick. Now they call it mark and say. But they're still doing exactly the same. Every recess or lunchtime, you're out there with the football. And maybe in the summer, you're out there with the cricket bat. But most of the time, and the kids are all gathered together to play kick to kick and try to jump all over each other to get the ball.
Yeah, and I've heard many people say that there are, large numbers of young kids who have started to, and back to the head injury issue, that have started to move away from footy and go towards soccer and go towards basketball. Due to the concern of injury. But if from what I remember reading, and I'll see if I can find the data, you were, just as an example here, you were more likely to be concussed playing soccer than you were to be concussed playing gridiron football here in the US. You were more likely to get a concussion playing soccer than you were playing gridiron football. So I don't know those numbers comparing between footy and soccer, but I would imagine they've got to be somewhat similar.
Yeah. Well, isn't it soccer stopped? I think in Australia you can't head the ball. I don't know if that, as a junior.
Oh,
you're not allowed to head the ball.
I didn't know that.
I don't know if that's the same in America.
Well, no,
I from junior games.
I don't know about the young kids, but I know the kids that are at the high school age level, which would be 14, 15 up through like 18, the games that I announced. I see kids, taking headers, all that, attempting to, move the ball with their head all the time. That happens quite frequently. So I'm guessing that that's not something that's been banned as of this point in time, at least here. But, before we talk about your new proposal, do you think that one of the things that kind of led to the down, you talked about the injuries and clubs and athletes themselves being, some of them maybe being a little concerned about being injured and losing their livelihood.
Star player.
Yeah.
They're losing their star player. Could you imagine how Sydney would feel if Buddy went down? He's playing representing Western Australia and he's out.
Right.
And maybe you might lose two players.
Right. And if if that player, was injured to the point where it impacted their career, then it's also impacting their livelihood.
That's exactly right. That's what happened with Tony Hall.
Yeah. So, so I do you think that the game, and I don't know what year this one took place, but in the little video clip that you shared with me, they showed that that it was kind of like it was like the Victoria versus Dream Team game. And
Yes.
it's from what it sounded like the other states took a great offense to the way that one was set up. Like, we don't need these other states to be joining with us. We can play Victoria on our own. It's kind of what they alluded to, is what they made it sound like. So did that anger these other states to where they just kind of started to think to themselves, this whole idea of state of origin just maybe needs to go away, because this wasn't a state of origin, and they didn't call it that as the video said, but do you think that was one of the nails in the coffin per se?
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't really. What it was that we're seeing all before, when I was a kid growing up and we used to go state of origin, you're actually seeing the state's best players.
Mhm.
So you're seeing a lot of players that you don't normally see because they're playing in their own league. So you had 3 separate leagues, say, between
Right.
Victoria, South Australia, and Western Australia, and you had your Tasmanian league as well. So you didn't see a lot of those players, and that's where you made you go, oh, that guy's a good player. Look what he's done to our backman. Like, you think your centre half back's the best player in the country, and you got this guy running around, this teenager running around getting the ball off him. So I think that that started that off like that.
Yeah, and and the last one was in 1999, if I remember what I heard correctly there, and it did not draw very well. It only had about 26,000 people at that game, but So tell us.
The main thing is,
go ahead.
We had Ted Whitten, and Ted Whitten used to always push for the state of origin, and the same with Ron Barassi. He used to really, really push for good players to play for state. It was a big honour to play for Victoria, a very big honour, and for your club too. And they used to push, because I remember one time we had a carnival in October, and Ron Barassi was getting the players all together, the best Victorian players, and he asked Lee Matthews. Like, Lee Matthews said, "No, I'm not playing because the season's finished. I'm going on a holiday. That's it." And Ron Barassi actually wanted Lee Matthews suspended in the future games, coming up the following year.
You mean
the start of the season?
Wow.
Because he wouldn't play for Victoria.
Wow.
That's how much passion there is for it.
So these games, I know the NBA is huge in Australia.
Yeah.
I know the NFL is growing in Australia, in terms of popularity, but the if you want to call them the all-star games, if we will, the NBA has an all-star game, the NFL has the Pro Bowl, but both of those games are, I think you can make the argument that both of those games are a bit of a joke, because the teams, there's not that pride that you're talking about. That it's not a state by state kind of thing. It used to be like the Western Conference and Eastern Conference and such, but the teams, they don't play defense against one another. They just hey, let's go see if this guy who can have the biggest dunk and that sort of thing. I'm going to guess that the state of origin games, as you mentioned, you had a teammate who was wiping out the knee of one of his teammates there. So it seems like they were taking, because it was a state thing, that they were actually taking significantly more pride in competing at a high level in that game than we see in the NBA All-Star game or the NFL Pro Bowl, which to me, I don't even, I'm an NFL fan, but I can't tell you the last time I watched a Pro Bowl. I couldn't tell you the last time I watched an NBA All-Star game. It's not real basketball, and it's not real football, because the tackling is not, they're not really tackling, and they're not really playing defense in basketball. But in this, it is you trying to show the rest of Australia, our state has the best talent. So
it's pride. It comes down to pride. They want their pride.
If it involves me knocking you ass over apple cart, then I'm going to do it. Yeah, and that's something that that we've kind of lost here with these types of games here in the sports here. Now, baseball is a little bit more like the state of origin game. They do play a more competitive type of game, I think, than the NBA and the NFL do. I couldn't tell you about hockey. I don't watch hockey at all, so I couldn't tell you how that works. But so tell us about your plan. So run us through this proposal here.
Well, my plan is that when we have the grand final, the week before the grand final, we actually have a bye. We have a rest. So both the two competing teams in the grand final are able to get their players right, have that extra week off, and they're both tip-top, ready to go in the grand final. You know what I mean? Have their teams at the best. Well, that week before the grand final, I think they should actually play these games, because you've got players that are around who still want to play football. Maybe they lost the week previously. Maybe they lost the preliminary final, that are still fit and want to play. And they've got no other games after that. You know what I mean? They're not playing the following week, where they can have time off and rest and go on their holiday.
So,
each state will play. Each state will play one game. Sorry.
Okay, really quickly, the players that are in the two teams that are playing in the grand final would not be participating in this game, I'm assuming.
No, you can't.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm gonna guess that those clubs would say not just no, but heck no.
Big heck no.
Okay.
No way.
Okay.
So we are missing out on 42 players or 50 players that can't be represented, which I'm pretty sure they're not going to be too devastated, those players are missing out on the game.
True.
Yeah.
So go ahead and continue. Sorry, I wanted to make sure that I knew where you were going with that.
So does that sound about right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's when they should play it, because everybody's all fired up with the football. The finals are coming on. And each state will play one game per year against each other.
Okay.
Right. Like a round robin. So you'll have two divisions. You'll have the first division, which would be the football states. The main football states would be Tasmania, Victoria, South Australia, Western Australia. And the other division would be Queensland, New South Wales, ACT, and Northern Territory. So each of those will play a game against each other. So you've got two divisions.
Okay. No, go ahead.
And each year you'll play each state once until you've got work out who's won the most games. The two top teams from two groups will play into a grand final on the fourth year.
Okay.
So we will go around till the fourth year. In the fourth year, there'll be a grand final between those players. Maybe they could call it the Rombarassi Cup.
There you go. I like that. I like that a lot. I mean,
State of Origin Rombarassi Cup.
I think anything that can be done to promote the greats of the game in some fashion like that, I think it is awesome. And now I know there was discussion about naming the premiership medal after him.
Yeah,
which would be, I think that would be either one of those things would be awesome. So you might actually have the team that you're playing in year one, each of the teams is playing every year, but you're playing a different team every year. So you're gonna, so, but the club that Victoria has in year one may have a different list in year two and year three.
That's exactly right.
4.
Yeah.
So
that's exactly right.
Yeah. Now,
I mean, you're picking the best players to play for your state at that time too. So you're not going back on previous players or players you think. And also with that concept, it fits in with the Olympics every 4 years, World Cups every 4 years. So that cup will only be handed out every 4 years.
Right.
And I think the bottom team from each division, like the bottom team from the first division or A division, will drop down, and the person who won the premiership or the cup or the title from second division or B division will go up the top, so they can work themselves up into the main AFL states.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yeah, it sounds like a great idea. I mean, I love because it then it's something that would continue conversation or continue bragging rights.
That's exactly right.
For an entire year.
Yes.
Okay.
Or 4 years, really.
Well, right, but from year on year, South Australia beats West Australia, you get to brag about that the whole time. Then Victoria beats South Australia, and WA beats Tasmania, and Tasmania beats whoever, so that this is a really interesting idea, and I like this an awful lot. I think it's awesome in terms of just having additional footy, which I think is great, and I think it's it becomes a pride thing there. Now, one thing I want to add. Let me ask you this question real quick here. One thing I want to ask you though is, do you worry about it? Because right about the time that the AFL is wrapping up, the AFLW is getting off the ground. Because that week before the grand final, if I'm not mistaken, was that? No, that was not week one. That was not week one of the AFL, was it? Of the AFLW?
No,
was it?
They had a bye, didn't they? They had a bye between the finals and the last game of the season, and that's when the girls kicked in.
Okay, that's right. Yeah. So I guess at that point, do you worry about? And I guess maybe you can't worry about it because you've got other. It would only be 4 games as opposed to 9 games of a regular round, I guess. So maybe it's not that big of a deal, but you'd have that competition between the AFLW regular season matches and the state of origin. But the other question I have is there a large enough talent pool in the Capital Territory to field a quality team to compete against Queensland, to compete against New South Wales? And I have to be honest with you, not knowing who would be on those lists right now, I think if I was a gambling man, I think I would put my money on the Northern Territories club. Okay. Without looking at the lists for any of them, I think I would put my money on the Northern Territories club out of those 4. But is there enough talent in the Capital Territory to field a club that would be competitive?
Yeah, well, they'll find their own. Maybe the local players will get a chance to play against some AFL players.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? It gives you an opportunity.
Well, it might be like,
or maybe they might bring it in that if you're not picked for New South Wales, you can go off and play for ACT, or you're not playing for Victoria. Maybe you can offer yourself services up to play for ACT.
Okay. I guess maybe they'd have to, maybe you just have to prove that you voted in the most recent election. I don't know.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, but I like this idea, and I think
what it was when you were a kid growing up and as a teenager, and the last game I went to was in 1998. It's the passion that the South Australians and the Western Australians have for their football is incredible, and it oozes out during the state of origin. It really comes out. It's like their big grand final when they play against Victoria. I can remember in, was it 87? 87, Victoria was playing against South Australia over in Adelaide. And they had the players ran out to these banners just everywhere. Kick a Vic. It was incredible. And that's where it came into. So when we played South Australia, I think the following year or 2 years on, and we had all these plastic bibs that came out like tops that were handed out to you as you went to the ground. They had a big V on it. So we had all those. There was about 80,000 people there that day.
Wow.
80 to 90,000, yeah.
Wow. I think that this is a great idea. And who knows, maybe, okay, this is rather presumptuous of me, but maybe the leagues from around the world that play the game, like the USAFL and the AFL Asia and that type of thing, maybe they put together a club of their best and brightest and go ahead and compete in this tournament as well. I don't know that maybe that would, maybe they could, because the USAFL is having their national tournament this weekend in Florida. And it's the biggest footy tournament in the world outside of Australia.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's because there's close to 50 teams that play in USAFL that most of them are gonna be there. There have been a few. There's been one in particular that I know of that has made the decision that that the team is not going to go. If the players want to go, that's fine. But they they made a decision based upon some things that have gone on politically that they did not feel comfortable sending their team to the state of Florida for one reason or
Florida.
yeah.
Is it because it's in Florida?
So you broke up there. Say that again. Yeah.
Is it because it's in Florida?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, it was the team from Portland, Oregon. That's not going there. So
that's a long way from Florida.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's about that'd be about a 5.5 or 6 hour flight to get there. Yeah, about 5.5 hours to get there, I would imagine. Yeah. So
see, these teams that are playing AFL, they have to raise that type of money to play. There's no governing body, is there, that hands out money to them.
Right. No, yeah, that's all. The players are all raising it. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow.
Exactly.
Talk about love of the game then to play.
Yeah, exactly. It's absolutely right. It's because they're not getting paid. They're paying to play the game. They're paying to get the crap kicked out of them by somebody else is what they're doing. It's kind of like,
that's incredible.
Have you ever seen the movie Dirty Harry?
Yeah.
It's like when Scorpio, the bad guy, paid that guy to beat him up and say that Harry Callahan did it. It's kind of the same thing. They're paying somebody to beat him up. You want all $200 worth? I want every penny's worth. Okay, wham.
And the thing is,
I use too many movie references.
These players had to have a passion and find the sport in the first place to play.
Right.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it really is. And there's been a growth of a handful of new teams that have come into the league over the last few years. And I've had representatives from several of the teams on the podcast, and I'd love to talk to more. I'm hoping to do that once the tournament is over. I've been saving up money to actually make the trip to Australia next footy season. I put aside. I know I have my flight paid for, and
that's good.
And I think I can get out of the airport. I just don't know how far out of the airport as of yet. I'm not sure if I can, actually, reach, the edge of the airport to where I don't hear the jet noise. I'm not sure how far yet I'm going to get away from the airport based upon what I've raised. But yeah, like I said, I'm hoping to spend 3.5 to 4 weeks there next footy season. And I cannot wait until the fixture comes out so I can actually start figuring out how can I get the most bang for my buck in going there? Because I want to. I want, of course, I want to go see a game, maybe two at GMBHA Stadium if I can. I'd love to see a game at the MCG. I would love. I'm hoping that it works out that I get to watch Richmond and Gold Coast play at Marvel. That's another little dig at Dimma there.
But like Richmond play there again.
And have
it awesome.
Have it be Dimma's team playing there, knowing that they're going to put you wherever they want to put you now. Although you know what, I have a feeling they would put next year if Gold Coast goes to Melbourne. I have a feeling they'll put them at the MCG because Dimma's coaching, because it'll be a huge crowd there. I have a feeling they'll do that. But I'm trying to, in my mind, I'm trying to map out. I've thought, do I want to make the drive? From Melbourne across the southern coast to Adelaide to go see a game in Adelaide. I want to visit local footy clubs as well. Because I've had a lot of them that I've talked to on the podcast, and I want to go see local footy clubs in person. It's the lifeblood of the game.
Yes. You want to see the culture.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to. I'm one of the things I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get as many like polo shirts from local clubs. I thought about trying to do like a polo shirt like this one for all 18 of the AFL clubs. And I had some people say, you don't wear another club's shirt like that. I picked up one. I won't say which one it is, but I did pick up one of the clubs because it was cheap. It was on eBay, and somebody was actually selling it from here in the US. So it was, the shipping was dirt cheap. It only cost me like $10 to get it. But I mean, I would love to get as many local footy clubs as I can. And polo shirts. I mean, I have two right now. And I have one that I know that somebody's trying to track one down for me for their club, somebody that I had on the podcast earlier. But it's been awesome to be able to speak to these clubs and just see how important, especially like, you get out into country footy where that club is, it is the community, it's the hub. It's like the community is the wheel, and it's the hub around which that entire community rotates. It's the footy, it's the netball, it's maybe they maybe also have cricket that they're playing as well. It's just neat to see that, because we don't we have high school sports here. We don't have anything like these local clubs. Once you get out of high school, there's really no avenue for young adults or even older adults to go out and still try to ply their craft playing a game that they loved. That sort of thing there is no like amateur football leagues for 25-year-old guys to go out and play. You can go out and play like slow pitch softball, but there's not really baseball leagues, or you could go play basketball at the local gym, but there's nothing organized necessarily.
You're not actually,
there's nothing like that.
But all the, we actually do need that there for our young kids and adults to play. Like they've grown up playing juniors, that they want to keep going.
Now, I had another variable that I wanted to see if you wanted to factor into this here. Okay, you're talking about taking the best of the best from each state. People who are playing at the AFL level, or maybe it's somebody who's a phenomenal player who might be playing in the Sandful or might be playing in the Waffle that hasn't, for some reason or another, they've not made it to the AFL yet, or they didn't get into the AFL for whatever reason. But have you thought about maybe even, and I know they do some of these kinds of things at the younger level, but could you also have, like, as curtain raisers, could you have like an 18U, 16U, 14U, or whatever the age level brackets are for this, and play the same games, the same schedule with people of those ages as well?
Yeah, but they always play state of origin from juniors.
Do they,
like each junior, under 16s, under 14s, and stuff like that? They play state level, and we actually have in Victoria, we divide it up between Metro Victoria and Country Victoria. Also play against New South Wales and Western Australia. I mean, not New South Wales, South Australia and Western Australia in football.
So that's already happening then.
Yeah, that's always happened.
Okay, so so it sounds like that this. I mean, it almost looks like
the VFL will play against the Sandful and the Western Australian League as well.
Okay,
like the VFL. So the players that
So it almost sounds like that this is kind of already in place. It just needs to have the you just need to get the older players involved with it.
It just needs to be reignited. Look at the history. The history is incredible for it. Do we let it die with Ted Whitten?
Well, hear me out on this. Do we, with the state of origin, do they maybe look at ways to help, like, cover the possibility of significant injuries by maybe having like additional, maybe the league that's doing, the league who's promoting this, maybe they would purchase like additional like health insurance, or like disability insurance stuff for an athlete, that if they get hurt and it costs them a year of their activity, that it's going to pay them maybe that year's salary that they're supposed to get. Or maybe then you would also have to add in a I know there's talk about a mid-season trade period possibly coming in the near future. And again, I'm not going to be that American that says, well, your game needs that sort of thing, because I'm not going to do that. I know that it's been a lot of debate about that. It would certainly make things interesting.
We'll make it. But we have got that. Do we have mid-season? That's where they
we have the mid-season draft.
The
mid-season draft.
But we don't have it.
Yeah, but maybe you would even have something that well, since this was at the end of the year, I guess you wouldn't need to have the trade periods coming up right after it anyway. So it's not at the start of the season where crap, I lost Buddy Franklin for the entire year. It's, now Buddy,
Yeah.
got hurt and he's going to be gone for,
Yeah.
10 months. So I may not get him back until like round 6 of next year, something like that. But maybe a club then is given that is given like an extra roster spot, and they're given an exemption in terms of the salary cap to fill that spot for that athlete to backfill their list, because somebody else is going to have to slide up into that spot. So maybe things like that would have to be thought out in order to allow this to occur. But I think, anything is, as far as, because in many ways this is kind of like the bragging rights that we see with like college football here. And I don't know if you watch any American football at all.
Yeah, I do.
But you've got you've got big rivalries in college football, like, Georgia and Alabama and Michigan and Ohio State and, USC and UCLA. And so there's that bragging right there. Those kinds of things are certainly there. So, I think this is a really, really good idea, and it could certainly be, I would love to see it. And again, opportunities to watch more footy would be awesome, because you'd have that bye week. Now I'm just kind of spitballing, like, I'm trying to be like, put pluses and minuses in my head. Maybe one minus maybe if there's that bye week before the grand final, because I know that they're always trying to figure out how to promote local footy, because that's also at the same time that local footy is starting to play finals as well. And it's that week is off. It's like, go watch local footy.
Yeah.
Would this get in the way of
local footy and country footy is usually over by the second week of September.
Okay, you know what? Yeah,
So
they are, because I've been that's true, because I've been covering some of the clubs in recent episodes that have been doing their best and fairest awards and that type of thing. So yeah, you're right. Okay, so that's a non-issue then. So we'll scratch that one off the list.
Yeah.
Okay, but I think it's a great idea, and if you're listening or you're watching, I would love, and I think Anthony would love to see or hear your feedback about this. So, leave a comment, on YouTube, leave a comment, over on my Twitter page at @Yank_on, send me, an email at my email address, or drop me a note on my website, ayankonthefooty.com. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what Anthony's proposed here. And because I think this would be something that, and I think especially for Australia, looking back at what happened over the last 3 years with COVID, because you had so many things that went on that, from what I have read, Victoria was probably one of the most locked down places on the planet.
Yes, it was.
WA basically got shut down. You come into the country, you've got to go sit in a hotel room for 2 weeks before you're allowed to leave the hotel room, that kind of thing. We'll leave you some food on the floor outside the door, but don't open the door till we've stepped away, kind of a thing. It's while it would bring around state or territory pride, I think it would still ultimately bring the country together, would it not, by the very nature of this sort of thing?
And it gives states, if your football team's already out of the finals, didn't win the preliminary finals, and they're not there, you've still got something to look forward to that you can support.
Yeah, exactly.
Coming right up to the grand final.
Exactly. Yeah. They don't play the Ashes every year, do they?
No. It's every 2 years type of thing.
Okay.
It's 4 years over, every 4 years over there, and every 4 years here. So yeah. So
they alternate, but it's every 2 years. So the next time they play the Ashes, it'll be in Australia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I've not watched. I mean, I've watched some highlights from it, but I've not sat down to watch the actual contest, because it's a lot of video to watch. Yeah, I've been watching. I've been watching a ton of, because they actually started a league here in the United States. They started a Major League Cricket league here in the U.S. this year.
Yeah, I
And,
saw it on the TV.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
so I was watching a bit of that. But I was surprised how many South Africans and Australians were playing in it. It was incredible.
Yes. Well, and they had to have a set number of people playing on each club who were residents of the United States. They weren't necessarily U.S. citizens, but people who were living in the United States. So some of these people had moved here. Because I know that there was a player that got taken in the Big Bash League draft. I think he got drafted by the team from Hobart, and it listed him as an American, but he's actually from New Zealand. He just happens to be living here in the U.S. and I guess his fiance is from the U.S. But he's going to go.
So we'll put him as American. He's almost there. We'll give him that.
Yeah. So again, I'm trying to figure out, because I don't watch basketball. I don't watch hockey. Those are the sports that are on during the Big Bash League. So I'm still trying to figure out which Big Bash League club I want to support. So I'm thinking, maybe I go with the
club you want to
Hobart
support
team.
is the Melbourne one. Is the MCG team? Do you want to vote for the MCG team? Which is
that the Renegades?
No, the Stars, Melbourne Stars.
They were the green uniforms, right? Yeah. Okay.
Do you know Glenn Maxwell?
I might have heard the name. I may have heard the name.
He plays in the league. Do you know who you were saying about most memorable football games that you remember?
Mm-hmm.
The one for cricket, if you want to write this down, is South Africa versus Australia.
Okay.
1999. Semi-final World Cup.
Okay, and I'm gonna get, and I have know nothing about this, but I am going to speculate that the legendary Shane Warne played a predominant role in this game.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to guess that he played.
That game's incredible. The reason why is that what's his name? Fleming. Anyway. Was it Peter Fleming? Oh, yeah. The Fleming bowler that's playing in it, he usually sits at Waverley at the Hawthorn home games in front of the scoreboard. But that week we're playing against St Kilda, and this is the most memorable game because Hawthorn came back from 10 goals behind. They were actually 63 points down against St Kilda at halftime to get up and win.
Wow.
And Damien Fleming always sits there under the scoreboard to watch Hawthorn play. But he was actually playing in that cricket game that was played the following night. So it was played that night, and then we went to the game the next day, yeah.
Wow.
Do you follow?
Wow. I will look that one up. That's yeah, and I think that watching that footy game where they come back from 10.5 goals down to win would be a good one to check out as well. Because that's one of the things I love doing, and I need to get some of those scheduled again. The ones where I'm talking to people about their quote unquote most memorable game, because because it helps me learn about the game, and it may also trigger great memories or sad memories, depending on which club you were supporting, for other people that are listening. And I have a gentleman that I think he did one of the first interviews that I did with this about the most memorable games. And, he's somebody who trades messages with me quite a bit on social media, but, I remember him telling me about his most memorable game. And it was back in the early 70s. And I mentioned this one in a recent episode, but he was supposed to go to, he was a Richmond supporter. He was supposed to go to the game like that next night or that night. And he had a track and field day at school. And it was right after the Summer Olympics had taken place. And one of his classmates had decided, well, I watched how they throw the discus in the Olympics. So I'm going to go ahead and try that. And Peter's telling me that this young lady who's spinning around to throw the discus lets go of the discus and hits him in the side of the head and fractures his skull. So he's in the hospital listening to the game on the radio because he's he can't get to the game. So that was his most memorable one. That is just I
remember listening to that one. Yeah, because I listened to your podcast at work on a Friday morning.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's, it's, and what do you do for a living, if I may ask? Because I never didn't cover that.
I'm a fitter and turner.
Okay.
Engineering.
Like a pipe fitter kind of thing?
No, more engineering, like
Okay.
machinery and
Okay.
motors. Yeah.
So you are significantly smarter than I am, is exactly what you're saying there.
I don't know. You're a school teacher.
No. School teach. No. You know how to do things with your hands.
Yeah.
The only thing I know how to do with my hands, unfortunately, is eat and occasionally scratch my nose. Okay.
Yeah, but you actually control teenagers. A big room full of teenagers.
Well, I try. Yes, I have been doing that. I have been doing that for 30 years. So, and there's a reason I have all of my hair. I just choose to cut it off because I am in complete denial about how gray it actually is. I don't want to know, because I used to tell kids when I was growing the hair in, and I would get my son's an officer in the Navy, and when his ship goes out on deployment, when he goes out on cruise, I let my beard grow in until his ship comes back into port. So
not good.
his last cruise, I mean, my beard, and I don't trim it. I mean, it got massive and it got ugly looking. But it was, I was able to tell kids, I said, you see that gray one right there? You gave me that one. But no, kids are kids. They're great. Kids come to school with so many different things that we don't know about them, that we have no way of knowing. They come, we go about our lives carrying baggage that other people don't know about, and the same thing applies to kids as well.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's just you have to. I try my best to treat my students with the absolute utmost respect. I don't yell and scream. I tell them, I said, I'm loud, but I don't yell and scream. I know how to do it, but I'm loud. I will talk loudly, but I will never yell at you. Okay. Yeah. But I may be loud with you, but I will not yell at you. There's a difference. And if I ever yell at you, you will know it. I said, and I have not done that in many years. But
you got good patience.
Yeah, I just drink a lot of coffee. Maybe I should go to decaf, I think, at that point in time. But I think this is a brilliant idea that you've come up with, and I hope that some folks will consider, hopefully put this in the ears of some of these folks. And now, in reality, do you think this sort of thing is likely to ever happen?
Feasible.
Well, I think it's feasible, but I think
it would be, because if you actually get the past players who actually played this game, who had passion for it, and they put their case forward, I think you would. They'll get a following.
Yeah, because
they don't want that to die with them.
Yeah,
that format.
Yeah, it's one additional game for each of these clubs each year. It's not they're not playing 3 or 4 or 5 extra games each year. They're playing one.
No.
Yeah.
And I think in that actual game in 1989 game, when Tony Hall got injured, I think Hawthorn had 7 players on that field that day.
Wow.
So there's a lot of players from one team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
I think that's what happens at clubs. What happens if we do have too many players in there? And I think when I was younger, you only had 2 players that could be represented from your club. But I think they changed over the years to saying we're only taking the best of the best, rather than 2 players from each club.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't, you wouldn't want to. Now, I guess let me ask you this: Have you, now that the grand final has taken place, will you go back and pretend that this game was going to have taken place 2 weekends ago, and compile your rosters for each of these 8 clubs?
Yeah.
Have you done that? Have you done that yet?
I mean, yeah, you could, but no, because there's too many players involved, and I think the league will have to work out which players want to play, who want to put their hands up to say yes.
Do you think should they be offered? We talked about the compensation in terms of like injury, but should there be some sort of additional financial remuneration? Should they get paid
Oh
for
yeah,
playing in this? I mean,
I think they should get paid good money, like really good.
okay.
Like, say, listen, well, we're going to pay extra 50,000 or maybe 100,000 to play this game. Would you play?
I like that. I like that. You know, and it's you know, do you? I think that's a great idea.
Like that.
So, before we wrap up, yeah, I needed to ask you probably the most serious question of our discussion here. You know, because in the email that that you shared with me, you mentioned that you were a fan of a couple of different television programs that I have thoroughly enjoyed that have come out of Australia, and I'm only going to mention one of them by name right now because the second one is part of the question. So don't spoil the name here. But I mean, I've absolutely enjoyed Jack Irish with Guy Pearce in it. I think that's and Aaron Peterson.
It's great.
And I've loved watching Aaron Peterson in Mystery Road as well, which they did a couple series, and I mean I've absolutely loved that. I think he does a phenomenal job. I know they did like a prequel series about how the origin story of Jay Swan, I think is his name, character's name. Yeah. But I actually reached out to Guy Pearce's management company because he's a cat supporter to see if he would want to come onto the podcast. Well, that hasn't happened as of yet, but I'll keep asking. But we mentioned one other television program, and I think everybody will know which one it is, but I want to ask you this question. Well, and I know something I do not have an opinion on it. I know something is very important is happening this weekend in Australia. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm not going to delve into Australian politics at all because it's none of my business. I do not want to come off. I'm not going to come off as like one of those Yanks or Seppos, as I've learned that term is one that could be used. One of those loudmouth Americans who's trying to throw my opinion around. But I do want to ask you, would Australia be a better place to live if in reality Cleaver Green was in a real position of authority?
Yes. I don't think Australia would be better off with him, actually.
Okay. Now, for those of you that don't know, or maybe you've forgotten the character's name, we're talking about the TV series Rake, which is, when I watched that one, it just was.
That is a brilliant show.
It just got more and more and more audacious as it went along.
Yeah.
And it was phenomenal. Absolutely loved it. And it's just, they tried to do an American version of it. I think it lasted 1 year on American television.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But, they had Greg Kinnear played the Rake character. But
was the dialogue the same?
I've not watched it. I've not watched it.
Okay.
But I just that character. He's just that one that you always seem to. It's like if you dropped your toast with the Vegemite on it, his always somehow it always seemed to land with the Vegemite up for him. Even though you think, gosh, it's got to land face down once in a while, but it always seemed to land up for him whenever something bad happened to him. But so you don't think the country would be a better place if he was in an actual position of authority?
I don't know. Well, maybe it might be because he has that. Isn't he great in the courtroom? Yes, he presents the cases. It's great.
Yeah, and I had forgotten that. I know because I know he became an independent senator in the parliament.
The last one.
Yeah, and I forgot it said that that. I'm looking at Wikipedia. It said at the end of the 5th series, he's appointed Chief Justice of the High Court of Australia, which, if I'm not mistaken,
I might have to go back and watch that episode again.
If I'm not mistaken, he was close to being disbarred and kicked out of being able to practice law. And it just, he was
because he got judged a bit of he spoke to the public or the media.
Yes,
but he didn't realize he was actually talking with the camera on.
Yeah,
and they disbarred him.
It's a brilliant show. I absolutely loved it. I've got several that I've been watching. There's one that in tremendously different character, and I don't think this guy. We don't want this guy working in government, but Mr. In Between. Wow, just some great series. loved the series, and it seems like it was only on for a very short period of time, called the Moody's.
Oh yeah, the
You know,
Christmas
the
movies, and
yeah,
then you had the
yes,
regular
exactly,
movies.
yeah. You know,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you know that, you may know this already, but the young man who was who played the lead in that show,
Yeah.
is Narrowly Meadows, who used to work for Fox Footy. That's her brother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's her
I
brother. 'Cause
didn't know that.
yeah, I had Narrowly Meadows on the podcast a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I was hoping to watch the footy, is because she's broadcasting, she's hosting these games in India right now, and you know, and I've seen some of her coverage and other things, and she does a great job with it. But it's just, you know, it's disappointing that I can't watch the World Championships that are going on there. I suppose I can find. I suppose I could find an illicit place to watch
Can
it.
we have a break for a second? I've got to go to the toilet. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Let me hit pause here.
No worries. You'll have to do some editing.
So, you know, we were talking about you know, a couple of different TV programs there, and you sent me a link to one called Good Guys, Bad Guys that I have not watched yet. Yeah, there've been several that I have that I have enjoyed. There was actually another one that had that Aaron Peterson actor on it. He was a police detective, and I think it had to be in Sydney or Melbourne, I guess. I can't remember the name of what it was. It was something homicide, I think. I don't remember, but my wife has enjoyed Wentworth. She's watched that one.
That was City Homicide. That was in Melbourne.
Yes, that's what it was called. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. And there's also Water Rats, my wife just said too.
Okay. And there's another one that I've really enjoyed, and it's completely different type of show. It's called 800 Words. It was about
no, I don't know that one.
Yeah, it's a dad, you know, whose wife dies in a tragic accident, and he moves his teenagers to this little village in New Zealand where he vacationed.
Oh yes, I've watched that.
And such, and it's just a neat little show, and there's a lot of good little morality tales in it and such. But it's, you know, so yeah, and again, this is not me trying to sound, you know, patronizing about watching, you know, these programs, but I really truly do enjoy watching them. You know, like I said, I watch a lot of British television, especially detective shows and that type of thing. I enjoy those. A lot of Irish ones as well. So, but yeah, so I think, you know, if maybe we should put out the challenge to listeners or viewers of the podcast that maybe this year.
You're gonna have to sign off. Sorry, I just have to stop for a minute. The battery's low.
That's all right. Yeah. So I was saying, maybe
you buy things now with the technology, they give you such short cords.
Yes, they do, because you have to buy an extension cord for it then.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking maybe we should put out a challenge to the listeners of the podcast that you know, if you happen to live in the Northern Territories or Queensland or New South Wales or Victoria or, you know, SA or WA or Tasmania or Wesley Jasper is the only person that I know that lives in the ACT, that maybe you should come up with your own list of the players that you would put on your state team, excluding Brisbane and Collingwood this year because they played in the grand final. Who would you
that's
put?
Exactly right. Yeah.
Who would you put on your list, folks? So go ahead and make out your list and maybe share that on you know, my socials, or share it, you know, via email or my website, and we'll maybe go ahead and put together those lists and share them out there for everybody and see who actually ends up putting together the better side. And we can even have a debate about which club would be winning.
Who's in, who's out.
Yeah.
But also, it's a great way to find out from each club who's from different states.
Well, that's true too.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't know.
Yeah. Now, would it have to be the state in which they were born, or the state that they, you know, basically grew up in?
It's actually basically the state of where they played their last lot of football from. Like some of the players like Nathan Buckley.
Mm-hmm.
He actually, I think he was born in the Northern Territory, but he's actually lived in Melbourne. He went to school in Melbourne, and then he got picked up by Port Adelaide. So his first club really was Port Adelaide, and he represented South Australia.
Okay.
And then he went and played for Brisbane. So, geez, that's one of those things that's hard to work out. Because Jason Dunstall actually played for Victoria, but he's actually from Queensland. But because Queensland doesn't have a representative state side, he could play for Victoria.
Okay. So and I think at this point in time, there may be enough players in the comp, and maybe states would have to look at the VFL sides or the Sandful sides to fill out their lists. And so, and I guess we didn't, before we wrap up here, I guess we didn't talk about this aspect of it yet, but what are we talking for list size? Because I would think you would have to allow for more than, the 18 starters and then the 5 on the bench. I think you'd have to have at least 30 or 35 just
30.
To make sure you're not
30.
To make sure that you're not running the same people out there the whole time.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's set the list aside.
I think with each state, they could actually start training once the finals hit, and as teams drop out, you can get your list bigger and bigger as the players drop out. They're not playing in finals anymore until you get to the last 2 teams.
I think you've got something here. here, and I think that maybe the AFL House should give this a listen. And well, that would be awesome if they did.
Maybe I should drop them this email.
Yeah,
that I dropped you.
Well, or drop the email and a link to this episode after I've published it. Then.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah.
So on the AFL.
So maybe we'll get we'll get some of them on board with this then. So, I always like asking this question, these couple of questions before we go. If you are, and you know what, I never did ask you, which club do you support? I didn't even get around to that.
Hawthorn.
Okay. So are you allowed to talk to a Cat supporter? Because I know those are supposed to be the big rivals there, but
well, the thing is, you're at work. You work with Cat Geelong supporters, so yes, of course we do.
Good deal. I feel okay about that then. But if you're hosting
with all supporters here, because we're not stuck to one team per city, you've got to deal with Collingwood supporters, Carlton supporters, Richmond supporters, Essendon supporters.
You could have just stopped. You could have stopped with the first 3. Could have stopped with the Collingwood, Richmond, and Carlton supporters. You could stop right there. The other ones, they're okay. We don't.
Yeah.
And I kind of like sledging a little bit on Richmond and Carlton. I still hold a small grudge against Carlton, and I've mentioned it. Well, back when Michael Voss got hired to become the senior coach, I was supposed to be on an episode of one of the shows on SEN. I was going to be getting interviewed on there. And
awesome.
I was supposed to be on there, and I was getting up
with Tim Watson and Gary Lyon, or was it?
No, it was, and I don't think it was. It wasn't. I can't remember. I'm drawing a blank on the name of it right now, but it wasn't Dwayne's World. It was one of the other programs that's on there.
Waitley.
No, it wasn't Gerard Waitley, but like I said, I'm drawing a blank on the Sporting Capital. Capital. Yeah. Well, I was supposed to be on there, and I get up at like 4:00 in the morning to do this interview, and I've got an email in my inbox that we're going to have to postpone this interview and reschedule it for some other time because the Blues hired Michael Voss today. Because I had spoken to so I have this little. They couldn't have waited till the Monday after the grand final to hire him. They had to do it on that Thursday. I never did get it rescheduled. So again, I'll put it out there. Sporting Capital. I am still more than happy to come on and chat if you'd like to, because the producer is no longer there because his email address does not work. So so like I said, I have this tiny grudge against Carlton because of that, but it's not a big one. But it would have been nice to have that. But I did get a shout out from Shannon Gill who writes for Code Sports on Gerard Whateley's program, and he was talking about, and I was stunned because when he was talking to Gerard Whateley, and he mentioned, well, there's this, and there's several of us here in the U.S. are doing these podcasts.
I know.
Donnie
You got the
Hess
Castle
from
Brothers
Donnie's
as
Disposals.
well, and you got the Castle Brothers.
Yeah, the Americans Watching the Footy, they do a great job as well. But he mentioned, and there, we have this, this guy, and he mentioned my name, Craig Wessels, with A Yank on the Footy, and Whateley goes, like he recognized the name of the podcast. I was like, holy cow! It's like, he knows the name of that, and I don't know if he really did or not, but I would love to think that he did. But it was really, really cool that did get mentioned there. So I can't thank Shannon enough for that. But I like sledging a little bit on Richmond as well, because of all the times that Dimma would complain about having to go play at Marvel. So that's kind of why I said at the outset there that I'm hoping that next year I could go watch Gold Coast play Richmond at Marvel Stadium, just so Dimma can say, well, there's not a darn thing I can say about this, because that's not my team anymore. But I said I don't think they'll put them there though. So
I think you might say that the Gold Coast supporters didn't come down because we're playing at Marvel.
Yeah. They didn't make the trip. No. No, I've had the biggest Gold Coast supporter in Victoria on the podcast several times. As a young man, he just turned 21 recently. I've had him on 3 or 4 times, and he is a mad Gold Coast supporter.
How come you went for Gold Coast?
Well, you'll have to go back and listen to those, because he had great reasons. Because his family members are supporters of other clubs, and he decided he wanted to go into a different direction. Yeah. He was a bit of a rebel. Wow. Yeah. So the last 2 things that I have for you here before we go. If you were hosting a music festival or a concert at, let's say, Marvel, okay, what 3 performers are you going to have are playing there? Who's coming to play at your music festival?
First one would be Queen.
Okay.
Because they're incredible live.
Mm-hmm.
But I've had Roger Waters, but I saw him maybe a year ago or 2 years ago. And that was just incredible. Dark Side of the Moon tour or whatever. No, it was us and them. And that was incredible. But I don't think he could go to,
to that size of a facility.
Yeah, like he would attract a lot of audience. Who else? It'd be definitely Queen. Something more gritty. I don't know. What bands are still going around at the moment? Would you have Metallica? Yeah, Metallica could do it.
Metallica could certainly do it. Yes, they certainly could. Yeah. I
saw Judas Priest has got a new single. So
they do. I am one of I'm another one of those people that yes, I am at a rapidly advancing age, but I still listen to very loud music. So yes, I mean, and I've even gone beyond just like the metal bands from the 80s and 90s that sounds like you and I have listened to. I mean, there's several that are newer bands that I've really gotten into that are just, I have a former student who is the lead guitarist in an up and coming band here in the United States that and their music is, I love the music aspect of it. And it's right on I always joke with him. I said, whenever the singer really starts to growl at me, it's kind of where I go, okay, that's as far as I can go. And I joke with him. I say, because I'll listen to his band when I go out for a walk, because it makes me walk at a very fast pace. And by the way, their name is Backbiter. So if you're a metal fan, it's a group of young men out of Ohio. You might like their stuff, but one of my friends that I teach with right across the hall, he and his wife saw Queen up in Detroit, Michigan, 2 nights ago. As a matter of 3 nights ago.
Oh wow!
On Tuesday,
they're doing the Northern American tour at the moment. Yes,
they played in Detroit.
They come back down.
Said it was a great show. He said that the young man that's now the singer for them does a phenomenal job.
He does.
So, what is the best piece of advice that you've ever received from anyone?
Gee, that's a hard one. I think you just treat people good. Well, respect people.
Okay.
Yeah. You don't have to like their opinions or the way they do, but just treat them with respect. You know what I mean?
I
You
like
don't
that.
have to go out with a hatred tone or.
I like that. Now,
Yeah.
are you on social media at all? Is there any place where people could follow you on Twitter or any social media like that?
No,
No,
I'm not on social media. I'm not on Instagram or anything like that.
okay.
No.
I figure I should ask, because I
Yeah.
know you reached out via
Because some
email
people
there.
are doing their own things. Yeah. No, it's just
Okay.
an idea that came up in my head. I thought, well, I'll pass it. Rather than just keep it in my head, I thought I'll pass it on. And you seem to be interested in different ways we look at football.
Oh, I
and the way
absolutely, I love it.
it.
I love the idea. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
And I think it would be, an awesome, it would almost be great to, to show those games here and say these are quote unquote all-star games and look how hard they're playing. Maybe the NFL and the NBA could learn a little bit from these folks. Play some defense, NBA. Actually, take a charge. Get in front of somebody once in a while. So, Anthony, I do want to thank you for taking time out of your Saturday morning. I hope you have a fantastic, wonderful day. This has been a lot of fun. And like I said, I think you have a wonderful idea here. And I'm hoping that the powers that be hear this, and maybe somebody who has somebody's ear listens to this and can plant the idea in their ear, or, when it comes out, you forward your email off to AFL House and see if they are, keen to this idea, and also go ahead and drop in the note and say, hey, make sure that if I get there next year that I can get a press pass so I can maybe go up into the change rooms after the games and maybe conduct some interviews and that sort of thing. So
yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, my guest has been Anthony Pirera from Melbourne. And we've been talking about the idea he had with regards to revitalizing the state of origin. And I think it's a great idea. And Anthony, I want to thank you again so much for your time today. This was a lot of fun. And I'm so glad that you're willing to give Cleaver Green a chance to lead Australia. God,
it's funny. I go through YouTube and every now and again there'll be a little clip that'll come up with Cleaver Green on it, talking about just a little bit out of his show, and each time it just cracks me up. And
it's brilliant. It's a brilliant show, and it's and I think there probably are. I think I might even know a few people that are actually like that in real life. That have, and I will not mention any names, but I think there are some people that are out there that actually live their lives that way. Heck, I think my dad kind of did in many ways. Actually, it's kind of how he was. He got a lot of life in his 59 years. Yes, he got a lot of life out of his 59 years. Yes, he did. Yes.
Did you come up with that suggestions? Wednesday. What happened to Wednesday?
Yeah.
He wakes up in the park.
Yes. Yeah. That's
here at the ABC shops, you can actually buy that on the mug that says Wednesday. What happened to Wednesday?
That might be a good mug to have. I mean, I've got plenty. I got lots of different. Yeah.
I think it says shit. What happened to Wednesday?
Yeah, I don't think I could carry that one. I don't think I could have that one at school, though.
Oh, come on!
No,
of course you could. Yeah, no.
Well, maybe my last year when I'm not too concerned, about things anymore. When I realize that, when I teach a lesson, I'll realize that's the last time I'm ever teaching that lesson. So yeah, and that's got about 4 years.
You should look up Summer Heights High. It's about a school.
I'll check that one out.
You'll crack up with that one.
Okay, I will check. I will check that one out.
It's about different characters and what type of children there are, and you recognize children in your class at your school.
Oh, I'm sure. Characters. I'm sure. I am absolutely sure that I will. Yep. Well, hey, Anthony, again, thanks so very much, man. I do appreciate it. And when this is all ready to go, I'll send you a link to it and you can share it with whomever you like.
Yep.
Send it out to friends. You can email it to them. You will not be putting it on your social media, as we know, but maybe your son can share, because I'm going to guess that he's on at least one social media platform.
Yeah, I've got 2 sons. Yeah.
Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Well,
thanks talking to you.
Cheers. You bet. All righty. Bye-bye.
All right, Anthony. Hey, I appreciate you taking time to sit down and chat with me, sir. That was a great discussion. Truly enjoyed that. A lot of fun. The whole idea of the state of origin game, I know there's concerns about injuries and that sort of thing, but it is a pride thing, and I completely understand why some people would love to bring it back. And I'd love to get your thoughts on it, folks. If you're listening, is Anthony's idea a great one? I think it is. And I'd love to see it come to fruition, because, more footy, the better, quite frankly. Now, folks, look out for one another. Check up on your friends. Make sure they're okay. Yeah. Give them a call. Tell them you love them. Take them out for that coffee. Just make sure you're okay. Make sure they're okay. And if you need to talk to somebody, please reach out. All those numbers are in my show notes every single episode here in the United States and in Australia as well, because I want you to be there. I did do the No Shave November thing, or the Movember thing in Australia here for a couple of weeks, but I did let it get a little scruffy here again. So I do need to shave it off, because I really don't want to see how gray it actually is. Now, I do want to mention before I go, and I should have said this in the opening, I am fairly confident, probably about 99% sure, that this footy season, I will be making my first trip to Australia, and I cannot tell you how excited I am about it. I'm over the moon. And I've had many people who have said over the years that I've been following the game, hey, if you ever come to Australia, want to take you to a game, or I've got a place to lay your head at night, that sort of thing. Well, I may be seeing if you want to really take me up on that or not. But I've had somebody reach out and say they've already got tickets for Cats games that I'm hoping to attend. I'm looking at between rounds 18 and 21. I know it's late in the season. It just works out best for me, because I'm hoping to work for part of my summer, because we're off from school at that point in time, and set aside some extra money in order to have some extra cash to spend. I have my plane ticket paid for. I just have not purchased it yet. And I have some other mad money for other things as well, but I would like to put aside more. And again, if you want to help out, you can certainly do that. That buy me a coffee button there on my website. If you'd like to help out with that, that'd be awesome. I'm probably going to come up with some new designs for the podcast and put them up on my Redbubble page here pretty soon. I've talked to a couple of people about maybe helping out with some designs regarding that. For those of you who know that my blue logo with the large red letters, Waza King from the Eagle Nation podcast created those for me a couple of years ago, and they're absolutely wonderful. Absolutely love them. But I'm hoping to come up with a couple of other items that might, draw some interest in wanting to help, defray maybe some of the costs for this. And I'm also hoping to reach out to the different clubs and try to get access to talking to people while I'm there. I definitely want to take tours of the MCG. I'd love to go see Marvel, want to see games there as well. Just very excited about the entire process. And I'm just beginning to scratch the surface. But right now I'm thinking there's an opportunity for me to see the Cats 3 weeks in a row. And yes, I want to go see other games. Now, 2 of those games would be at GmbHA, the Bulldogs and the Crows. And the one in the middle would be in Hobart against North Melbourne. So I'm discussing that. I'm debating that. I'm also thinking, and I've thought about this already, that maybe I want to make the trek across from Melbourne to Adelaide and go see the Crows. And I believe the Hawks are playing the Crows at the Adelaide Oval in round 20. Yeah, it's in round 20, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Again, we don't have dates firmed up for these yet. We have like range of dates, like the 15th through the 17th, but I don't know what times for these yet. So, I understand the comp wanting to have the most highly sought after games in prime time. And, you don't want to have, if for example, let's just say that the the Magpies and the Lions are back up at the top of the ladder next year, and they were playing one of those rounds together, that they would not want to have them be the Sunday afternoon game where most people have tuned out and gone to do something else at that point in time. You know, that's going to be one of those games that's likely to be relegated for a club that's maybe not towards the top of the ladder. But I'm going to be putting together some ideas on that, and I do want to reach out to you. And if you got some great advice for that, I want to see local footy as well. I want to get to local clubs, especially ones that I've been able to have on the podcast to talk with. I'm hoping to add to my collection of local footy polo shirts. Jumpers are great. I mean, I have a couple of them, but they're not necessarily practical for me to be wearing around the state of Ohio where I happen to live. A polo shirt, I can wear that anywhere, and I get questions. You know, I have a couple of them from local clubs up in the Northern Territories, Tracy Village and the Waratah Club as well. And I get questions about where these shirts are from. So I enjoy being able to talk about that because I get to promote the game. I distinctly remember making a drive and stopping on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and I was wearing I believe it was the Waratah polo shirt, and I'd stopped at a rest area on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, a toll road, and I spent 10 minutes, weird conversation. I spent 10 minutes talking about Australian rules football to an actual Hell's Angel in a bathroom, talking about footy, because he was fascinated by the logo and was just really, really interested. And so we talked about this game, and hopefully this gentleman's checked out the podcast and hopefully he's watched the game as well. But enough about that. I am going to be spending some time talking about this prospective trip, the one that I'm thinking I'm going to be making here very soon. But folks, I appreciate you listening to the podcast. Like I said, check out on one another. Check out my website, ayankonthefooty.com. I hope you'll subscribe over there on my YouTube channel as well. I'm starting to put the video out there as well. So I'm recording the intros and the closings separate from the interviews that I'm doing. So I have to do the continuity and make sure that I have the correct shirt on. So I had to go find this shirt to put on today to record the opening and the closing. Hopefully I have the correct pair of glasses, because I have my other pair of glasses right next to me here. So I didn't look that closely to see whether I had the gold ones or the blue ones. So I might have screwed that up. But folks, remember, you can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook at A Yank on the Footy. You can find me on Twitter or X at Yank_on. I do hope you'll give me a follow over there. Tell your friends about the podcast as well if you're enjoying it. Trying to have fun, trying to have a lot of laughs. Don't take it, I mean, I take it seriously, but I'm never going to be so bold as to think that I know more than anybody that's grown up with this game. Okay, I'm just enjoying the absolute hell out of it. Okay, really am. I do want to congratulate Australia for their win in the Cricket World Championships. Unfortunately, I did not get to watch really any of it because my Willow TV subscription did not offer the tournament that was being played in India. It looks like a fantastic showing for Australia, and I tip my cap. That one right there, I tip that one right there to everybody, and looked like it was an awesome win. I'm hoping they'll unlock the footage for this stuff now that it's done. I can go back and watch it after the fact, at least the highlights for it. Again, folks, thanks for listening. I do hope you'll share the podcast with your friends and family. Give me a follow over on YouTube. And as always, may your dribble kick never hit the post. I will catch you later. And this has been episode 295. Thanks for listening. Give it a share. I'll talk to you soon. Cheers, everybody. Bye-bye.